waiting for an extremely risky surgery. A blood vessel in her brain had ballooned and was on the verge of rupturing. To fix it, doctors had to deploy a severe medical protocol. They hooked her up to machines, completely stopped her heartbeat, and drained the blood from her head. They taped her eyes shut, and to monitor her brainwaves, they placed small speakers deep inside both of her ears that blasted 100-decibel clicking sounds. The monitors showed no brainwaves, no activity. By every standard of medical science, in that specific moment, Pam Reynolds was clinically dead. The surgery was a success, but when Pam woke up, she presented the doctors with a terrifying problem. She accurately described the exact shape of the bone saw used to open her skull, noting it looked like an electric toothbrush. She then repeated word for word the specific conversations the surgeons had with each other while her brain was entirely shut down. She claimed she watched the entire operation from above her own body. This leaves us with a difficult question to answer. Does a patient possessing knowledge they scientifically should not have prove the existence of a human soul? Or is there a hidden biological mechanism explaining what actually happens at the moment of death? Doctors have been trying to weigh and measure the afterlife for over a century. In 1901, Dr. Duncan McDougall placed dying tuberculosis patients on a massive industrial scale, attempting to prove that the human soul weighed exactly 21 grams when it left the body. The experiment failed to hold up to scrutiny. Science mostly avoided the topic for another 70 years, until 1975, when Dr. Raymond Moody began collecting accounts from people who had been resuscitated.
He found their stories were remarkably consistent. They saw dark tunnels, bright lights, and said relatives. Moody coined a phrase for this that we still use today, the near-death experience. Skeptics approach these stories through a concept called the dependence thesis. This states that our consciousness, memories, and feelings are entirely reliant on brain activity. Psychologist Dr. Susan Blackmore argues that near-death experiences aren't glimpses into another realm, but rather predictable biological glitches of a dying machine. This diagram of the human visual cortex shows exactly how that glitch creates the famous tunnel of light. When oxygen drops during a medical emergency, the cells responsible for our peripheral vision at the edges of the cortex lose power and fade into darkness. Meanwhile, the dense cluster of cells in the center begin to randomly fire, creating the illusion of a bright central light at the end of a dark space. We can apply this same biological lens to the profound feelings of peace and the classic life flashing before your eyes phenomenon. Extreme physical stress triggers massive dumps of endorphins and localized seizures in the temporal lobe, the exact area of the brain where our memories are stored.
What feels like an ethereal journey to another universe is actually the physical hardware of the brain short-circuiting as it shuts down. We know this short-circuit theory is accurate because we can replicate it in healthy people. The U.S. Navy regularly places fighter pilots into spinning human centrifuges to simulate extreme G-forces. The rapid spinning forces the blood out of the pilots' brains, causing them to temporarily pass out. When they wake up, they frequently report the exact same tunnels of light and out-of-body experiences described by cardiac arrest patients. You don't actually have to be dying to have a near-death experience. Your brain just has to lose oxygen. Then there is the cultural evidence. When researchers document cases of resuscitation in rural India, they find striking differences from Western accounts. Take the documented cases of Chaju Banya or Durga Jatov. Neither of them reported seeing a tunnel of light. Instead, their dying brains conjure encounters with Yamraj, the Hindu deity of death. They described scenes involving clerks with massive ledgers, who eventually informed them that there had been a bureaucratic paperwork error and pushed them back into the land of the living. A near-death experience is a combination of two things. First, the biological hardware fails, causing the tunnel vision and the endorphin rush. Second, the brain's cultural software boots up, filling the void with the religious and societal expectations we were taught as children. This brings us back to Pam Reynolds. Science can easily explain why she saw a bright light and felt a deep sense of peace while on the operating table in Phoenix. But biology cannot explain how she knew the exact shape of a bone saw while her eyes were taped shut.
It cannot explain how she accurately recounted the surgeon's dialogue while she had speakers blasting the equivalent of a subway train into her ears and zero brainwave activity to process the noise. To solve this final mystery of the out-of-body experience, Dr. Sam Parnia launched the AWARE study. Researchers went into hospital wards where cardiac arrests were most common and placed specific images flat on top of high hospital shelves. They could only be seen if a person was physically floating near the ceiling. Out of more than 2,000 cardiac arrest patients involved in this study, 101 completed the detailed interviews. Exactly 0 of them were able to identify the hidden images. The study failed to yield any empirical proof that human consciousness can physically leave the body. Cases like Pam Reynolds remain a tiny, unexplainable crack in the wall of medical science. But extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and no one has ever definitively proven they can cross over to another world and bring back the proof. Because we cannot verify what happens next, the most logical choice is to focus our energy on fully experiencing the one life and the one planet we know for sure exists.